There's two types of property law and ownership in Latin. It's fee simple, absolute in possession, and term of years absolute. Freehold and leasehold. That's what they really mean. And with that, the valuation is attached to the value of each fee simple. And and as a valuer, it's a really difficult. In the UK, we call it a red book valuation. In the States, it's kind of similar, but you call it realty. And the valuer ends up in a really powerful position because you can value that property however you want to value it. Because you're chartered, yeah, you hold all the power. And I know many big corporations who are gearing up for this to undervalue.
Good afternoon, everyone. As always, bringing you another brilliant mind that has delved into the change of our world and why it's happening now. Why is all this change happening right now? This is the question I keep coming back at. Well, Gary Fraughen here is going to be hosting Alternative View in June. And this is an exciting time to bring different speakers to, show the information that's not widely available. You know how much suppression of information occurs right now, but to bring a group of people together, not only the audience, but the speakers themselves, to show a different side of why things might be changing and what types of technologies are around and being used at the moment. So Gary's going to be the host of that coming up in June. I wanted to get him on here because, seeing the videos that he's produced, and you can check out his website at Gary, that's Gary, Fraughen, FRAUGHEN.co.uk. Amazing videos there. And the new book that was just released, a third in the installment. And then you say there's going to be a fourth here. New World Order, Past and Present, and the Adepts.
But yeah, it's exciting times. But there's change a coming. There's definitely change a coming. And I of the view it's going to hit America first, and then the rest of the world will get the cold. So what it is, digital currency, Trump doing what he's about to do, Larry Fink, what he's about to do, and digital currencies. So there's a lot going on. It used to, I woke up in 2001 and you'd get a change every sort of 6 months. Well, it's accelerating now to the point that there's 5 or 6 things happening a day. So I have trouble keeping up. Luckily I can drive a tractor with my earphones in and try at least to run with all these changes and try and work out what's actually happening. Because I'm all about solutions, and I'm all about if I can get people to see what I'm seeing, there are far smarter than people out there than me that may have the answer. So that's what I'm all about. Hence why I've picked up the work of Ian R. Crane, because he's gone on to the next great adventure. And the team, Lisa and Steve and John, we're just gonna keep going at it. And those that aren't prepared, it's gonna be difficult times for them, I think. And I feel very sorry for them, really. But they've been going to the football matches, they've been shopping, buying things with money they haven't got, to get things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. Yeah. So I'm not one of them. I used to be, with a chart surveyor. I used to have a very nice lifestyle, but then I threw it all away because I wasn't willing to go along with the narrative. But that's another story.
That seems to happen quite a bit.
That's my 10th book. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, that's when I'm done.
As we age, our body's collagen production declines, leading to visible signs of aging like wrinkles, sagging skin, crow's feet, smile lines, and more. These effects start being most noticeable after 40, when our collagen levels are reaching their lowest, and each year they get lower by 1%. Research shows that collagen is responsible for a third of our skin's protein, providing the ingredients skin needs for structure and strength. That's why I've been using Ageless Multi-Collagen for years. That features 5 key types of collagen designed to replenish your skin's collagen levels in combat The effects of aging. Its unique collagen blend is designed to reduce wrinkles, promote youthful glow, skin elasticity, and skin hydration. Help your skin look its best with ageless multi-collagen while it's 51% off now by going to healthwithadapt2030.com. Plus order today and you receive free the 14 foods for amazing skin and a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free shipping. Once again, this is only available at healthwithadapt2030.com. Click on that link in the description box below. Gary, could I interject here that about money also in buying things? So in China currently, over the last 20 years with their great rise in economy and power, they encourage people to spend and buy those exact things. Go get the Chanel bag. Go get the Hermes, custom-made shoes. That's great. But just in this last, say, 6 months, that is too bourgeois. They want you to invest in gold and silver now. Right. So the jewelry shops across China are just absolute record valuations on the stock market, all 5 of them. It is verboten, and your social credit score gets lowered if you are in these stores seen buying these products.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So they're really encouraging people to take that money. Don't give it to foreign powers any longer. Buy gold and silver. Keep it inside China and keep the country massively powerful by having all these metals across the country. So they have a reserve gold stock just from the amount of people that own gold. But they've also shifted now to really push people to buy silver at the same time. So now we're getting China hoovering in all the gold and silver. Now, why is that right now? And all these changes that you're talking about, Gary, I mean, why right now? I keep coming back to that's the main point of every time I have somebody on is why now? This all could have happened years ago, but they've kept it going down and down and down and held it on just to that last second. But why this second?
But that's kind of a trap anyway, because there's 3 things that always exist in any economic stressful situation. 3 things, it's what always gets people through, and that's land, precious metal, and works of art. They're the 3 things that will hold value. Everything else, worthless, absolutely worthless. And I think what they're doing is they're fooling people into buying gold and silver rather than buy land. Like, that's what you should be doing. If you've got a little bit of gold and silver, sure, you can buy fuel and you can do a deal with somebody, but you don't need that much of it. I mean, these stackers who collect so much silver and so much gold, it's insane. It's land you want to buy. Land. Not only to grow your own, but you can sell land so that other people can grow their own. And then you can cut a deal that way. So interesting days. Days.
Can I show? And also in the United States right now, everywhere you look, and the messaging is real estate market's crashing, bad time to buy a house, interest rates are bad, don't buy land, just wait until it's over the next time you can get it for half price. And the whole discouragement news cycle of don't even touch real estate right now is happening. And that's interesting you mentioned that, and it's on cue.
Yeah. And then you've got the other aspect. I mean, the UK, we have something called a road fund license, and it's on vehicles. It's basically a tax for the road. And if you don't pay the tax, you get pulled over and the police will steal your car and sell it and give you hardly any value of what it's worth. So the rules are quite crazy in regard to the road user in the UK. But they brought out a new tax as of tomorrow, April Fool's Day. That's a good one. If you buy a new vehicle, your road tax can be as much as £6,000, £8,000 for the first year. So they've just destroyed the car market, absolutely destroyed it. So everyone's going to be purchasing old stuff, old vehicles. They don't want the new stuff. I think anyone that's got new stuff is crazy anyway. Anyone that these days you lift the bonnet of the car and it just says "do not touch." There's a big plastic plate over the whole engine, like, oh, don't come in here. Whereas I drive an old Ford pickup truck, never lets me down. It's a workhorse. It works. It's not pretty, but it's an operating laser lit thing that will go anywhere.
Now think about car prices in America too. Like if you're going to even get a brand new pickup, if you're going to get some sort of like SUV, you're looking at $45,000 and above.
Yep.
Some models are say at 30,000, but that's insane to think about that kind of price for a car, especially when you get into this $50,000 range. Like, who's going to pay 50 grand for a car or
Yeah.
some sort of vehicle that's going to depreciate as soon as you drive it off the lot, and then it's going to depreciate, and then your payments, you're out for like 5, 8, 10. They're giving like a ridiculous 15-year loans out, auto like micro loans now, where your interest is more than or equal to the amount of your car. So they just again, this whole interest and usury, try to pull that back in by tricking people to get these long, really extended loans. They were even talking something like 100-year loans or 50-year loans on homes here now to try to get people that would get into the refinance game or the finance home game. And instead of being on a 30-year loan, they would do a 50-year loan, and they will cut that down to something like 10% on the down payment and get you on a 50-year note. And I'm like, imagine the amount of interest on that. But most people just don't know. And that's where you come in, and there's all this knowledge of people that just don't know, especially from the old times or the more ancient times.
And people don't know the value of money anymore. They've got no idea what. I did one show last year, and I explained what if you take $100 note and you put it on the floor and you put another one on top and another one on top and another one on top, how high do you think that would be for $1 million? You get it wrong.
10,000 of those.
$1 million. How high off the floor do you think that pile would be?
I'm not sure.
Back of a chair.
Okay.
Below your shoulders, back of a chair. What about, so that's $1 million. How high do you think $1 billion would be?
1,000 millions is a billion. So the back of a stack of a chair, let's say 3 feet times another million. I'm not sure. The height of the Empire. Well, what's the tall building that in London there?
You're there because it is actually the Burj Khalifa in Dubai plus 200 feet.
That's quite tall. That's more than 1,000 feet tall.
So that's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. What about $1 trillion? So when the government said, like, after the
to the moon, like literally almost to the moon, you'd be going up into the upper stratosphere or even up into the mesosphere.
From the ground to the space station 2.5 times.
Yeah, that's it.
So when the government says we're $1 trillion in debt, I'm like, what? And other people just are thinking back of the chair, high as a house. Boo. They have no concept of the value of money and what these numbers actually mean. But I explain all that in book 2. The first book was about words. Second book is about numbers. Third book again is about the New World Order. And they're in tune with this secular stuff, cycles. They use cycles, they use energy, because I did some interesting stuff in book 2 about energy, that we're electrical beings. And but once you know who your enemy is, then you can work things out. You've got to know the rules of rugby, or you're going to get hurt. So I try and break the rules and share them to everyone, and then hopefully there's a brighter individual out there than me that can find a solution.
That's the thing about the knowledge. Once you have it and you understand how these cycles have been used through antiquity, it's more riding on top of a natural cycle to achieve a greater outcome. If you were going to brute force that, you could brute force it, but you're not going to get the outcome. But if you knew the energetics, either planets in houses or magnetic field changes off the sun affecting our planet here, how the human resonance and the way they perceive information in the brains is that electrical signature change in a new magnetic field, you could jump on top of that. And maybe they're more easily led, or maybe they're more difficult and they see through lies. So you have to come up with a completely different plan. And again, I'm asking why now? Well, the magnetic field of the planet's collapsed another 5%. Why now is perhaps that something has changed in the way humans perceive information. So they need to put a new plan in immediately to guide or push, again, to get this outcome that you're talking about, Gary.
Well, the sun's not yellow anymore. It's white. The sun.
Now it is, yeah. And it should turn blue, according to John Casey. Like the next photo frequency on that will be coming off as a blue tinge. Imagine how that will freak people out if our sun sort of goes to a blue tint after this white step. Because that book that he wrote, Cold Sun, when I interviewed him, he was talking about the next step going would be blue, but that goes into the blue star Kachina and the whole Hopi prophecies. But again, if the sun starts to tinge blue, how do you keep humanity together at that point? But somebody knew this was a cycle anyway, that it would be back again.
But if you figure out that that's what's going to happen, it's not so scary, is it? It's kind of like almost expectation, and how we as humans will change. I
Well, wait, let me say, how would the magnetic field difference be different for you versus somebody like me?
Yeah,
The
well, that's
magnetic
what.
field difference, electronic, not electronic, but I mean electrical current through our blood here. So you're going to be different in the same exact magnetic field than I would be. So perhaps that's been mapped out as well.
But I think it's to do with plasma. Plasma is a thing that will make the change. So I think the change is via plasma, and there's an increase in plasma, right? So something's here, something's arrived. And I'm not talking like down the road. I'm not talking about 2030. I'm talking about right. I'm talking about we're on the cusp of it. And yeah, I think we've got some interesting days ahead of us, really.
We are now. No, you said plasma. Are you talking plasma in the blood or actual physical electroplasma or highly
Electroplasma.
electrified skies where lightning
Yeah.
is holds state for a much longer period of time? Electric red sprites that we're seeing, blue halos, red jets, all these things are like holding up there. That used to be the thing of myth and legend, but now we can actually photograph them because they're staying in stasis so long a period.
Everything is about occult for these guys, and I'm into cracking all their codes. I cracked one recently called about Romulus and Remus, which is going into the fourth book. Remus spelled backwards is Suma, and there's a reason for the Romulus as well. But everything to these people is about what's hidden. The occult, which just means hidden, and then you got the cube thinking. So, which I had an interesting conversation with someone we both know. And the ancient Egyptians used to read left to right on their hieroglyphs, but the priests would read in the direction of the face's direction. So if people were looking left, they'd read left, and they'd read a different story to the people who were reading left to right. So they'd read right to left if people were looking the other direction on the hieroglyphs. And then you've got cube thinking, which is three-dimensional. So you'd go into a chamber and you'd read from the bottom of the floor to the top, across the ceiling, and back down the other side. And that was for the real controllers. So you had the normal man reading one direction, you had the priests reading a different direction with a different story, and then you had those in control who would read over the top and down the bottom and down the other side, all with the same information. Just people just didn't know how to read differently. So that's how far back some of this stuff goes. That's how equipped those in charge knew. So we're pretty dumbed down right now. I don't think we're anywhere near as smart as we used to be, because it's all about control, right?
Yeah, because you got me thinking right when you were saying the reverse of Remus is Sumer, so Romulus is Sulumor. And I
Yeah.
put it in here to grok just when you were put in there, and it says a person turned priestess in a desert setting, the exalted, mid Holocene like environment, and again that fits right along with mid Holocene would be Sumer right at that point, 7,000 years prior, and people are always asking, how did it go from milk and honey, verdant lands of plenty into desert? Well, that just doesn't happen because people were driving SUVs back then. That is a climatic cycle that is in and out. And the peer review research that I've seen, it occurred as little as 200 years. So can you imagine have a thriving society and it goes from, you got plentiful water, crops are growing, and then in under 2 centuries, you're looking at a desert like we're looking at in Iraq today and the north in the Sahel. Like that, people move. And that's why we find all these remnants in buried cities. So if you take away the food source of a civilization, it is going to move.
Yep.
But what triggered that? 6,000, well, so 6,500 years ago.
We're back to cycles again.
Yeah, we're back to cycles again. And the crazy thing is the whole African Sahel and North Africa is becoming much wetter, especially that Eastern Horn area where the new Renaissance Dam has been built. That thing filled years in advance. And now, believe it or not, Eritrea has one of the highest growing economies on the planet in terms of GDP percentage, because now they have constant electricity and they
Yep.
have water for irrigation for crops. So put
Yep.
those two together and you start to see, wait a minute, wait a minute. Who would have built the largest hydroelectric project in Africa in one of the driest places? And then it filled years in advance. You know, somebody knows these cycles are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're on the money with all that stuff as well. I'm more into the book learning stuff and the private libraries, and I scratch away in dark corners trying to get some of these old information out to people, because don't forget when they created the Kindle, I was like, oh no, it's time to get rid of information, because what do you need? The Nazis used to burn books, they used to burn the information. Well, what do you need to get rid of information? A Kindle is something you start a fire with. And Kindle removed George Orwell's 1984 overnight and gave everyone their money back, just to see if it could be done. So Kindle is a really bad thing to have. If you want information, you've got to have it in a book.
You could go back to the Library of Alexandria if that was the first book burning to get rid of information, because that was brought from a previous age forward.
Yeah.
So can you imagine, like, you were starting back then to burn the information from the prior world? I mean, what do we even have left now? I mean, sheesh.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, everything. I mean, the book industry. The book industry is so controlled. I can't describe. I mean, I do sell through Hatchards and some of these bigger stores and stuff. They have my work, but all my work is ISBN, so it's all at the British Library. So it'll be there long after I'm gone. But you need it in a book. It has to be in a book.
So what type of pushback would you look at? Because I'm looking at my bookshelf up here. So I got, the Lost Book of Enki, at least up here in one of mine. And like, they didn't really want that out as much either and transcribed, and, it works. I don't know how valid Sitchin is, but, a lot of pushback was at that time. And Velikovsky, for sure, Worlds in Collision, like anything, catastrophism was frowned upon and really pushed back or removed from libraries. And all the manuscripts about physics, et cetera, from 1919 pulled out of the libraries under military secrets. Talked to Roger Anderton about that, the way the military went through and removed every single peer-reviewed research on physics pretty much out of everywhere. So what kind of pushback are you getting there in terms of trying to put out your publications into, either the UK or the United States or Europe in general? Or
Well, I sold into Iceland the other day, so I've sold into 59 countries now.
Oh, okay.
And so they are getting out there. I'm having real trouble getting my books into Ireland.
Ireland.
Ireland, yeah.
Why is that? That's just like right there.
Yeah, I know, but because I put a return address on it, obviously, on my work, but my books just aren't getting through to Ireland, or they're getting through with great difficulty. I'm having to send them 2 or 3 times, and then dress it up as a box, so it's a gift, so it doesn't look like a book. But I'm selling a lot into America. There's a lot of Americans waking up, Canadians, New Zealanders. There's some wonderful people out there, and the books have brought me great joy, because people have got my email and they can contact me, and I always try and answer people back. And there's some wonderful human beings out there. And you know what? There's a lot more of us than you think. There's a lot more of us now searching than you think. When I woke up in 2001, and I couldn't have a conversation with people because people thought I'd lost it. But now I can have a conversation about a lot of things in a post office queue, or in a supermarket, or people are really starting to see something is wrong, but they can't quite put their finger on it. We got to keep going, but we know who our enemy is now. And they've been planning this for a very long time, but they know something we don't know, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
So let me ask you a question then. All right. So if you understand the plans, and these people are understanding that the cycle is back, that the current world can't be salvaged in its form anyway. I'm of the same volition that they understand the cycle's back, food production is going to collapse, and they can't salvage the present world. That's why you can't value a company or a shipping company or something the exact same way if it's not functional because of all these changes. So what's the plan then to push back or control those that are becoming awake? Because it's not that happening by thousands, it's happening by millions and tens of millions. So it's coming to the point where we're way right at the 100th monkey right now. if you
Yeah.
believe in such an effect where there's some
No,
sort
no,
of,
I do believe that. Yep, I do
yeah.
believe that.
I was just talking to everybody out there listening, once you get to that certain rollover point that through, the consciousness of that's what, web bots and all these scraping of all the data, when they see words change and lexicon become more popular, it's the subconscious of humanity bound together. So when it gets to that rollover point, like how are these same controllers going to try to push back? Because at that point, they will truly lose power.
Yeah, but they call it the revelation of the method. They believe that they tell us what they're going to do, and if we don't resist, then we acquiesced.
Hmm.
But if we resist, then they can't do it. So, and it's like the digital currency. We just say we don't want it. We don't want it. We'll make our own notes up. We'll make our own doctarian credits in local communities and sell and deal and barter with our own systems. Notes should be made of gold and silver anyway, as an intrinsic value, because then it's a thing, isn't it? Whereas a dollar and a pound is a pound of what? It's a pound of nothing. And the pound used to have an equal sign on it, which meant balance. But now the British pound has got one score through it, which means negative, which means debtor. And that's why on your credit cards you've got a little dove on the back. Have you ever realised why the holograms on the back of
They always have
credit?
doves. You're right.
It's because when Jesus threw the money lenders out of the temple, you used to, if you were wealthy, you sacrificed an ox, but if you weren't, you lent money or loaned money to buy a dove for sacrifice. So it basically means you're a lender.
Hence, you're paying the interest. How far back was actual silver coinage, silver into coinage? I mean, we need to go back pre 1964 here in America to get back to where there was actual silver in the coinage, and then pre 33 for the gold coins. So how far back do we need to go in the UK there too? Because a pound used to have actual real value with it, and you
Yeah,
know,
a pound, pay the bearer a pound in
sterling, yeah.
sterling silver. But now it just says pay the bearer a pound. A pound of what? Feathers. If I go from this country to France and bring my tokens with me, no one will allow me to use it because I've gone from the Bellagio to the Circus in Vegas. They won't let different chips go to different, you know. But if I take a gold coin from the UK to France, then I can do deals with that because that's got intrinsic value. It's not a token.
Walk me through the collapse then in your mind. I have my own vision of how it is going to roll out, where if they're going to make it atrociously difficult, where you will accept this digital currency because you'll have no other choice. You can either get something, get on the system, and then you'll move forward with it, or you won't. There's going to be there's no C in this. Well, I mean, maybe there's a C if you got your own land, your own food. Like you can stay out of that system for a while. But
It's
like, how do you
the
see this thing coming down? Like, what's the triggers that you see?
It's
And then
happening
how
now.
does it move forward from, the first trigger is it's like domino, like you were saying, that first domino, second. Okay. So the first, second, third dominoes, then what would those be? Because they're going to be events tied to the economy that'll take the legs out of it.
But the first thing that will go will be the bond market. That's the secret to the money supply, the bond market. And the
Yeah,
bond
true.
market is in absolute turmoil at the moment. I mean, the bond market is the worst it's ever been everywhere, all bonds. And a lot of Fidelity stock, they basically control a lot of the insurances and life insurances and all that sort of stuff. That if that bond market collapses, that's all over. People who think they've got government index funded pensions, they'll disappear overnight.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist. So that'll go. Then it'll be like we need a digital reset. But like I believe I've got these things. I've got hands, and I'm a builder in effect now. So I could do a deal for you, and you can do a deal for me, and you do something for me, I'll do something for you, and the government's got not in between us. It's got nothing to do with us, so they can crack on, they can get on with it, you know. But you do need some precious metal, but also you should be considering land. So if you're sitting on a pot of money in the bank, oh yeah, I mean, if they switch off the internet, all that's over anyway. So that's all done. You know, if if I can't physically hold something or have something, then I don't believe it's money. I just don't believe it's money. I believe it's worthless.
Yeah, that you're
And
not going to get anything out. I was doing some research the other day on gold, and there's 390 gold contracts for every 1 ounce of silver. And for silver, or excuse me, for gold itself, like physical gold in the hand, 390 for one. So you got 390 people want that one physical ounce of gold. So 389 people are going to go without. What kind of world is that going to bring to, you know? I mean, the people who think they're well off right now are going to get a shocking awakening when this happens.
being a chartered surveyor, you know, I used to value buildings, and people don't realise that, you know, if you take the average bedroom in the UK, in terms of its value of a house, like you take a big house, a small house, a flat, the average bedroom in the UK is £114,000. The average bedroom in France is £1,000. The average bedroom in Germany is £3,000. The average bedroom in America is £60,000. So our economy and your economy are so overvalued in terms of property value. It's unreal. It's unreal. And people think they're well off. They're not. They're not. They're just living in a very dangerous situation because property prices are not what you think they are. And when people have got no money, they won't be able. See, people don't realize when things get really difficult, they think they'll just sell stuff. But what will be happening is everyone will be selling stuff. And the market will be flooded with, I don't know,
Stuff.
whatever, stuff. Yeah, stuff.
So much.
Stuff.
They're going to take a penny on the dollar if they can continue to eat, which creates a problem of a lot of people are going to want to take from those who have that did prepare. If they can't sell it, and even then selling is something for 1 penny on the dollar or 5 cents on the dollar, people are not going to be happy with that either. So
No.
whatever way you look at it, it's just going to get nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, I mean, I have very few friends, let's put it that way. And I like it that way, because then you get to the point where you start worrying about family. I luckily I haven't got a very big family. And I feel sorry for people that have a lot of family, particularly those that haven't done any prep, as it were, because they're going to be kind of, what do I do? You know, another mouth to feed, and then there's their partner, and then there's their children, and more mouths to feed.
Yeah. You're not going to eat. No, you can't not give my son or my daughter food because they didn't want to work today. Then, you know, where to come in, like the community family is going to start like putting people in, like throw them in the closet for a day under jail or something. You're grounded. I don't know. I mean, it's not going to work like that because because they're going to come in with the thought that I don't know how to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. I shouldn't have to do anything. And when the realization hits them, at what point does some sort of discipline come in? Oh, that's too mean. You tell them they can't eat for the day because they didn't participate in any work today. You know, it's going to come down to that. And the animosity in the family is going to grow. And you're going to have like splitting, rifting divisions within the family, probably in the first week or under 2 weeks, not months,
No.
under 2 weeks. Get ready for that.
Yeah. And don't forget, some of these people aren't used to work. You know, they're not physically used to work. They're not out in the blistering sun and the freezing cold rain like I am. You know, I'm out there all the time. I don't spend my days inside. Doesn't happen. And these people aren't. They haven't got the minerals. They haven't got the minerals to do it. They're just not unable to do it. And yeah, and they just become a burden. That's the word.
Yeah. So think about that. That's going to be one of the things you're going to need to contend with. But swinging back to the economy too. So most people have a house, or, you know, if you have a house, at least the plan I've heard and talked to a few people way smarter than me have said that they're going to digitize the asset value on the house, and that will be the base of the new currency. Now, you're not going to get your house back. That's going to be swept in with all the bail-in laws that, you know, you got to read the Great Taking, the Great Reset, and combine those together. the lawfare that's been done in advance for this moment is like rock solid, hardened, dried concrete in stone. You're not getting away from it. So what they're going to do is they're going to let's say your house worth, you say 500,000. They're going to reset you on the currency, whatever that is. They're going to digitize your house. You'll have no ownership rights to it, but they will give you back that in your digital wallet, whatever the reset is on that. If it's 100 to 1, you're going to get some money back. If it's 1,000 to 1, you'll get like $500, right? If it's 100 to 1, you get 50,000. Okay. But when it does come back to that, that is going to be your money that you will be able to spend for the rest of your life. So when they say you will own nothing and be happy, you will have the money in your digital wallet to spend as you like, but it'll be tied to the previous value of everything you owned. But my whole thing is, what happens when that runs out and goes to zero and you're still alive?
Well, the government's got a problem with that because all mortgages are about pounds and dollars. It's explicitly says pounds and dollars. If they decide to use ductarian credits and they change it to another word, then your mortgage no longer exists. It's paid for. It's done. So you have no mortgage.
They're going to call it the digital dollar. I've already been told the new dollar is going to be called the digital dollar, so they don't have to go through that motion. Although it will be a Fed now credit dollar versus a Federal Reserve issued dollar, it will be something different in the issuance of it. It's really like an apple and orange. The name stays the same, so they don't have to go through that, at least in practice. Now, is that possible? I'm not sure. You know more than I do on that.
Well, I mean, you've also got a problem with valuation. You have an open market valuation and a market valuation. So an open market, there's two types of property law and ownership in Latin. It's fee simple absolute in possession and term of years absolute, freehold and leasehold. That's what they really mean. And with that, the valuation is attached to the value of each fee simple. And as a valuer, it's a really difficult. In the UK, we call it a red book valuation. In the States, it's kind of similar, but you call it realty. And the valuer ends up in a really powerful position because you can value that property however you want to value it. Because you're chartered, you hold all the power. And I know many big corporations who are gearing up for this to undervalue.
Yeah, on the revaluation, again, you brought up an important point. So the plan was, after they were going to tokenize the value of the real estate, and that tokenization would be your fund to live off of. But you can never sell that house again as long as you live. So if you needed to make repairs and upkeep on it and pay property taxes continually, you'd have to draw down from the fund that they gave you from the initial, valuation price. But is that the valuation price at today's price, or is that after the reset of 1,000 to 1 or 500 to 1 or 100 to 1, and then they give you that money for the reset on the value of your property? That brings up an important point that I didn't even consider there.
Yeah, but the government has housing stock because in Margaret Thatcher's day that they were conservatives, and they sold off the housing stock, so people could buy a council-owned property for sort of 30% of its value. So there was a huge want of people wanting to buy property. That then forced property prices up. The problem we have now is property prices are in such a mess, like a deep mess. All property in the UK is just overvalued, overheated, and so that's not going to go anywhere. I think what they're going to do is they're going to because so many people, when it gets difficult, will try and sell their property. I think BlackRock will come in, or the other lot, and just give you pennies on the pound for the value of those properties, and people will take it because they just want out of the mortgage. So then BlackRock will end up owning housing stock, and then they'll bond it and sell it back to the UK government, and that will then flood money into that corporation. So it's a very clever way of doing it, I think. But I can see how it's going to be done.
But a global collapse in the financial economy and the entire planet might stop those people from doing the research and on the cusp to get them to refocus away. Because in 2019, the overnight repo market here in America was crashing. I mean, literally, there wasn't enough money to keep our banks afloat. And there was a terrible crisis happening at that time, almost a near financial contagion and implosion every single night. And it got up to something almost like 800 or 900 billion per night needed to be put in just to keep the banks floating. And then suddenly COVID came and there was never any money in printing and nobody ever looked, blinked a question or anything. But the central bank protests were going on at the exact same time across at least 24 nations on the planet. And then there would have been in 25th and 26th, but they knew they were losing control. The narrative, people were sharing the information about central bank control and central bank being the main causation of inflation, your life quality degrading. And they actually, again, they found out the villain and they were pointing the fingers. And these bank, protests were going and going. And then, the overnight repo thing was collapsing. So the perfect excuse came in. And you notice once that happened and you had to stay home, mask mandates and no social distance, all those protests stopped in literally a matter of weeks, plural, and that was gone. You never even heard about it again.
The only country that didn't happen to was Icelandic banks. Iceland. They jailed all their bankers. They jailed them all. They threw them in jail. But we can't talk about that.
Verboten, as they would say. I appreciate everybody staying around. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment box below. Gary and myself will take a look at those. And again, garyfraughen.co.uk. I'll leave that right on the bottom so you can take a look at that. But Gary is going to be the host of Alternative View coming up in June here. And if you want to tell us a little bit about that, feel free. And any last comments, love to hear them.
Yeah. I mean, quite a few of my followers will probably be on here anyway, and a lot of them know about the Alternative View. And Glastonbury is a really cool place, and we got some speakers talking about some pretty scary stuff and really quite interesting stuff.